Thank you, Madam Speaker. At this time, I'd like to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Idaho, Bill Sali.
The gentleman from Idaho is recognized for 3 minutes.
Madam Chairman, before I begin, I would first like to thank you for reminding the body of the need for decorum in our remarks, and would also ask unanimous consent to submit extension of my remarks.
So ordered. The gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, several points. First is, it is stunning to me that this body will consume over 36 hours of floor debate on a non-binding resolution. This should be on a consent calendar. Irrespective of one's position on the war in Iraq, all taxpayers are right to be incensed at such waste in this Congress. This legislation will not have the effect of law, will neither inspire nor impede military action in Iraq or elsewhere, will not encourage our troops on the ground, nor foster victory over America's enemies that practice terror. It will have one effect: poking the President of the United States in the eye, diminishing his credibility among the international community, and eroding his ability to lead here at home. It will also have a very genuine result of undermining and demoralizing our soldiers that are now in harm's way. Second, equally stunning is the apparent preoccupation with demeaning the President Bush while ignoring those who are our real enemies. Our enemies are not in the White House or the Defense Department. They are not people like David Petraeus or his staff. They are not the vast majority of Muslims throughout the world who, like us, want simply to live peaceful and secure lives. America's enemies are radical Islamists, less than 1% of all Muslims, whose faith requires that a pure Islamic state be established and that violence is the instrument by which to establish it. Their faith requires terrorist acts against the West and all Muslims who stand in the way of that agenda. That's why Osama bin Laden can say that he and his followers are, quote, in love with death, unquote. Indiscriminate slaughter is for these sick people merely a tool in the arsenal of moral barbarity. That is why his second in command has declared that Iraq and Afghanistan are, quote, the two most crucial fields, unquote, in their war. That is why Al-Qaeda in Iraq has declared an Islamic State in Iraq's Anbar province. Third, how do America's enemies view us? For one thing, they fear George W. Bush and our military. That's why Libya's Muammar Gaddafi 3 years ago surrendered his nuclear materials to the U.S. That's why Muqtada al-Sadr's, Iraq's most powerful militia leader, just made a beeline for Iran. Not for a sunny vacation from long, tiresome days of planning suicide bombings, but because he feared for his life. But America's enemies view Congress quite differently. They see us as divided, irresolute, unwilling to face honestly their concerted plan for our destruction. Hence, this non-binding resolution. In light of this reality, I would ask my friends across the aisle, what's your binding plan for defeating America's enemies? America, our allies, and our enemies are still waiting for your binding plan. More than 3,000 Americans have died upholding the hope. 30
additional seconds.
The gentleman is recognized for 30 additional seconds.
More than 3,000 Americans have died upholding the hope of defeating America's real enemies and bringing freedom to Iraq. We must not allow their deaths to become a pretext for the abandonment of that hope of victory or abandoning the Iraqi people, but rather they must serve as the inspiration of a renewed commitment to hope of victory and security for Iraq. We owe to their heroism and sacrifice nothing less than one thing: victory over America's enemies in Iraq. America is the last best hope of man on earth. A victory in Iraq is our last best hope for defeat of America's most dangerous enemies and also for freedom and security in the Middle East. We must not fail. Madam Chairman, Madam Speaker, I yield back.